You know, one of the biggest parts about becoming a good YouTuber or a good speaker is telling stories, yeah? So that's the ability to someone ask you questions and you be able to tell this in a way that reflects your true identity. So what I'm going to come up with here is throwing subjects out there and just talking on the subject. Just whatever's coming to my mind at the time, draw on my own personal experiences and then talk about it, you know? So here goes. You know, one of the biggest problems across the world is actually trauma. So if you look at all the drug addicts, you look at all the people who are abusive, all the people who are nasty to one another, all the people in the world who have this dysfunctional thing of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I feel insecure, low self-esteem, drug problems, addiction, all of it has to do with trauma. And trauma, when most people think of it, they think of it as in, oh, this person was beaten up severely. You know, like they think of severe trauma rather than thinking of it like a spectrum. So it's not always that someone was sexually abused. It's not always that someone was beaten up severely, although those things do affect people severely. It's actually now scientifically proven that trauma is a spectrum. So it can happen on the extreme end and it can happen on the lower end, but it's really an identity thing. And what I mean by an identity thing is when people experience trauma, they take it on as who they are. And I give you an example. So let's say that somebody growing up doesn't feel like anybody is listening to them, that they don't feel that they are heard, they don't feel that people are listening. So you might take the scenario of there's a young kid and they're really interested to be like, learn about boxing. So he's going to his dad and saying, oh, I wish like at Christmas I could really get some boxing gloves, or I could really get some like a boxing bag, or even enroll in boxing. But the father's like, you can play football. That's what everyone else does. You're not doing boxing. So all of a sudden, this kid goes, well, when I want something and that I feel passionate about, it's not all that important. I should just go with what everyone else does. So they don't really feel heard, as in what they do is important, and how they feel about something has an impact on whether they can do it or not. So that creates like a type of trauma that basically my passions aren't important, what I'm interested in isn't important, and I shouldn't pursue the things that I like. So that's like an example, and that can happen in many different ways. Another one is trust. So parents, their job is to be a caregiver. So that means they're there to look after and protect the child. If a child sees that the parents are not open to protecting them, for example, if the child is in danger or somebody says something to put them down and they don't do something about it, that child then registers, shit, that person just tried to put me down, yet my parents didn't tell me to stick up for myself. They didn't stick up for me. Therefore, they take it on as a shame identity that they are not good enough to be protected, which is one of those very, very primary Maslow hierarchy of laws, at its core. So that's one of the other things, is at our basic need of needing to feel protected by our parents, if that's not there, that can create trauma. The other thing is being able to speak openly about things that are worrying you. So it's not just about being able to speak about the things that you want, it's also about being able to speak about your concern and things that are making you feel anxious, So if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling worried, if you're feeling even just your feelings, if you can't express your feelings to your caregivers, it creates a type of trauma. Like the example of that might be, there's something happening at school and your parents just don't show interest in anything or open up the ability to talk about things. It's more a hierarchy of the parents are here, the children are here, and if they misbehave, they're punished. But the kid doesn't feel that they're on the same level and they can't trust them. Therefore, what happens is the kid disconnects from the parent and they're not able to voice their concerns. And then what do they learn? If my parents cannot connect with me on a level of trust and openness, then why would the rest of the world? Then they shut that down and they're no longer open to voicing their concerns, and they bottle it all up. If their primary caregivers can't do it, then why would the rest of the world, is sort of the thinking or the pattern that happens. So this is another form of trauma that sits with people, and what's always happening on an identity level is my parents don't connect with me enough to make me feel worthy to be on their level, or that I'm worthy enough to voice my concerns, or worthy enough to have a conversation around what I want. And this is easy to figure out, because if you watch a great parent is going to be looking out for the talents of the child. And it's not always what they're good at, as in talents, it's also their passions. So whatever they're interested in, typically the school system will say sport is great, maths, English, all these things. The example might be the child is sitting there drawing, loving the drawing process, or putting together, like collages and things, something arty. The parent just dismisses it because they don't find it valuable. The child loves it, wants to do more of it. The parent doesn't praise it. They don't celebrate it. Therefore, the child packs away whatever they're passionate about, whatever they're interested in, and puts it aside and follows what social norms or what the parents think they should do. Another thing in terms of self-esteem. So if you think about what self-esteem is, it's really at its core that a person believes and feels what they have to offer the world, what they are interested in, what they talk about, has some value to the people around them. The fact that they are really into it and they are passionate about it has some value, and therefore, because they find it valuable in themselves, that other people will find it valuable and they will feel free and open to share it. And that can just be conversations, that can be hobbies and interests, passions, all these sorts of things. But what happens is, if you've got some parents who don't know how to connect with a child, what ends up happening is the child is wanting to connect with that parent, and they're wanting to connect on the child's level, right? About the things that they are interested in. So if the boy goes to the father and he's really passionate about this new thing that he's into, but the father can't connect on his level, that creates a type of trauma. And it creates a wound within the child. And that child grows up and becomes an adult, but is still wounded. It still has a low self-esteem to it. It's really the parent's job to show interest in what the child is doing, because of the sake of the child, not because the parent is not interested. They should be interested and show some sort of interaction and way to celebrate it, due to the fact that they know that the child will get happiness from that they will get joy from that they will feel a connection and a high getting the approval of their parents. That is the job of the parent, to create the high self-esteem individual. What's going to create low self-esteem is, oh, daddy, I did this, and then he ignores them, or doesn't ask questions about their life. Oh, so why are you into that? Oh, you're into this skateboarding thing. Great. What do you like about it? What do? You do tricks? Have you learnt any? Yeah, Dad, the kickflip, I'm trying to do that. Oh, son, how did you go on your skate session this weekend? How close did you get to the kickflip? Oh, you got what? You landed your first one? Wow, son, that's fantastic. You know, showing interest and enthusiasm, whereas the person who just goes, I'll pick you up at 7, doesn't ask any questions, that's it. It's like there's a complete disconnect. There's no investment. There's no genuine interest from the parent party to connect with the child. And that's what happens. The child then just goes, well, whatever I'm into is not really that important, not really that interested. And then their needs don't get met when they're older, because they learn when they're younger that their needs and their interests and the things that they want to connect with are not important, because the primary caregiver did not have it within them to show interest, to show passion, to connect, to interact, to show companionship, to be on the same level as that child. So that's childhood trauma.